In Search of Love, Manifesting Power of the Spoken Word by Miriam Distefano. Nowadays, it seems that the most popular talk show topic is before and after makeovers. A few people are invited to get their hair cut and colored, add some makeup and new clothes, and presto, a new person emerges. Well, the story I'm about to tell you describes a makeover of a different kind. The makeover I speak of is the one that occurs on the inside, in the soul. Whether we realize it or not, universal love touches our lives every moment of every day. It is so powerful that people may even be unaware of its effects on them. Even a person that is so against nature is affected by universal love, because it is everywhere present at all times, and is the very thing that sustains the entire universe. It is when we truly feel the presence of universal love within us. When we embrace it, our lives begin to transform and take new meaning. It's like a makeover on the inside, with God supplying love for a soul lift. My spiritual message also relates to universal law, and that law dictates that words we speak are living things and manifest great power in our lives. Unity has taught me a great many things, but the most fun and practical example I can share is from a personal experience in Australia. Before I was aware that words are living things, I used to speak without thinking. Awareness of this universal law has taught me much about the responsibility and control we each have to shape our lives for the better or worse, and that we do have the ability to create heaven here on earth. Fulfilling our dreams and hopes is a wonderful thing. Growing up in Canada left me dreaming a lot about traveling to far-off, exotic places. Both my parents traveled great distances from their homeland in Slovenia to settle in Canada. My family was loving and filled with tradition, and as I learned more about each of my parents' journey to immigrate into Canada, I felt proud of their strength and courage to start over in hopes for a better life. I followed a conventional path of education, which settled me in Toronto for 4 years. College was fun at first, but soon I realized that I was not interested in what I was learning, and thus began a string of changes. Changing my major, changing apartments, changing jobs, changing friends. It was often a sad and lonely road, and left me ultimately dissatisfied with my life. I was looking on the outside for happiness, and always feeling empty on the inside. Love always seemed to elude me, although I wanted it so. There was a chill in the air, and it fevered my loneliness. My heart cried out, but nobody heard. How I longed for a gentle touch, a soft, kind word. I could only dream of happiness everlasting. On the outside, I tried so hard to be pretty, to be funny, to be liked. No one noticed, and I was left alone to fight off my sadness. This battle raged within me, but nobody heard, nobody cared. This is often true in the material world, where we seek to find happiness from other people or things. I wanted desperately to have a real, true, and understanding friend to fill my void, a lover to take away my loneliness, and a supportive family that understood me. All the while, I did not know that God loves me and was there every step of the way. I did not ask, I did not knock, I did not receive, and mine was the agony of waiting. Well, I became determined that life was not going to pass me by, and I needed a long, faraway journey. This was just the activity that would change things for me. After all, I wasn't finding the meaning of life here. It must be somewhere else. As soon as I graduated from college, I committed to taking a trip to the South Pacific, including places like Hawaii, Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia. I applied for work so that I could stay in Australia for 1 year. No one I knew was up to taking this trip with me, so I went alone. This came as a major shock to my parents and my so-called friends. But my mind was made up, and I was going. I wanted to feel alive, and I wanted to feel like my life was worth living. And I convinced myself that this trip would do it. Well, this trip did change my life, but in ways I couldn't even imagine back then. The day before my departure, my aunts and uncles gathered together for a visit to wish me well, and during our conversation someone said, "Miriam will probably meet a husband in Australia." It was a funny remark at the time, and we all laughed, but those words were living now and preceded my journey to Australia. My eyes were wide open, seeking out that feeling of excitement and adventure, waiting for that moment where my life would change forever. Well, my first stop was Fiji, and as I anticipated this life-changing event to happen, just the opposite occurred. Not much happened at all. I was the same person in a different place, and the only difference was that I was more alone now than ever. This had to change, and I was going to make it change no matter what the cost. So when I arrived in New Zealand, I made up my mind to try every exciting adventure affordably possible. I started with a jet boat ride. This was exciting. Being in a jet boat, riding so fast that your heart starts pounding, and the driver is heading towards a rock wall, and at the last minute turns the direction. There was that feeling of being alive. This feeling, I thought, was what made life worth living, and it lasted the entire boat trip. But then it was over, and I was left empty once again. Well, this made me want to try something else, to get that feeling back, so I was convinced that the bungee jump would do it for me. Could I muster up the courage? After all, this is the life-changing event I was looking for. Doing the bungee jump was going to bring that feeling back. I just knew it would. So there I was, on the edge of a bridge, getting tied up by the ankles to do this jump, feeling the anticipation swell up inside me as the people went through their checklist, knowing that I could still back out if I wanted. Well, folks, I have to tell you that this was exciting. In that moment, I felt so alive. Doing the bungee jump had my adrenaline pumping so fast, I was crying and laughing at the same time. This feeling lasted a whole 5 hours, and then it was gone again. Here I was repeating my search for something real and everlasting on the outside, and left feeling empty and more sad on the inside each time. Well, I wasn't about to give up. There was still the tandem skydive, and I could fit it in the day before I was scheduled to depart for Australia. This seemed bigger and more exciting. Surely this would bring that feeling back, and it may even last longer than after the bungee jump. Well, there I was again, getting strapped up and suited up for this skydiving experience. For those of you who may not know, the tandem is a jump you do with an instructor strapped to your back. I didn't have the time to invest in lessons. I just wanted that feeling back. Pushing my courage to the limit, I found myself hanging outside of a moving plane, 10,000 feet above the ground, and then letting go. For the first few seconds, these words came to my mind. Faster than a speeding bullet. Falling through the air with the ground coming closer and closer was very exciting. The wind was blowing through my hair. My heart was pounding. This had to be a thrill for a lifetime. Then, after the parachute opens, you drift down the rest of the way, as if you are floating on air. At that moment, I was crying and laughing at the same time again. I felt so alive. This made my life worth living. Surely this feeling would last. Well, I'm here to tell you that this feeling ended almost as soon as my feet touched the ground. By this time, I was exhausted. My money was running out. I was still alone, and through all that effort, I was still unable to hold on to that intangible feeling. The thoughts going through my mind were, this can't be right. There must be something else bigger, something that would last forever. Well, this is the part of the story that I like the most, because in between the lines, I was finally asking for God's presence in my life. The following months I like to refer to as the quantum leap, because the events that unfolded allowed me to discover my spiritual self, and God's presence grew inside of me at such an accelerated rate that I was unable to put it into words. God taught me to enjoy my own company. Spending quality time alone allowed me to appreciate who I was, and even to love myself. Before, I was searching for happiness on the outside and not finding any. Now, the happiness was swelling up inside of me, and it was lasting days, months, years, forever. This makes me feel alive and truly makes my life worth living. God is our constant source, with unlimited power. From this time on, I never felt alone, and I was dedicated to nurturing my spiritual self. And in a conversation with God, I asked for guidance. And if I were to find a mate, that this person be spiritual as well. In a discussion with some people, I admitted to wanting to find someone with these same words. I just need to find a big, bald Italian man to put his arms around me and give me a big hug. Well, those words were alive now, and with the life-changing results that I expected in the past, happened a week later when I met Angelo on my birthday. His impression to shave his head came to him a week prior to our meeting, but that is another story. And when I first laid eyes on my big, bald Italian man, it shocked me that I could ask for something in such detail and receive it a week later. What a wonderful birthday present Spirit sent to me, and I graciously accepted. This manifesting power of happiness and love in my life made me a full believer that words are truly living things, and someone is always listening. Angelo asked me to marry him a few days after we first met, and we have been married 24 wonderful years. This is a story about love and the spoken word. It's about God's everlasting love, about loving life, and about sharing love. Before anyone can find true and lasting love, they have to truly love themselves first. As I was preparing this message, these words of truth came to mind. Ask, and you shall receive. God always knows what we need before we even ask. When we ask humbly, Spirit will surely guide us and make a way. The thing that makes this work above all is the submission to the higher will of Spirit, and our ability to open our hearts and minds to what is truth and to create goodness. We must not let ourselves be deceived by the whims and opinions of society, but pray honestly and follow our impressions. For our deepest impression will unveil the greatest truth in our lives, because this is Spirit's way of communicating with our soul. The Unity Church has been a spiritual resource for us and a place to share love and knowledge with the people who come here. One of my favorite parts of Sunday service is meditation time, and Angelo will be leading us through our meditation today. I thank you for listening and allowing me to share part of my life story with you. For today I fulfill a dream of being a spiritual messenger.